Hello and welcome to the Valley Soup. I'm Grant Musser.
And I'm J. Max Hurley, and this week in the stew, we'll be talking with Mr. Estep.
Tasty! This week we'll be talking about the bullying assembly we had here.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Mr. Estep for joining us. I'm really excited to have a guest, first guest on the Valley Soup.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be the first guest here on the Valley Soup. I think it's an awesome opportunity. Looking forward to more of this.
And we're really looking forward to this podcast, especially because on Tuesday, it was Tuesday, right? Yes.
It was Tuesday, yeah.
We had a guest speaker, Adam Blank. Now, I'll let Grant talk about him a little bit, but I was really excited about it.
Yeah, I thought that he did a very, very good job. I think that, well, first of all, his last name is Blank. We're not just leaving that blank. But his speech was powering, but I think what the best thing that we saw was whenever he talked to us about what he really had to overcome with bullies and how he's doing today. That, you know, people can overcome this. You know, stand up for yourself. Go talk to your teacher. But also, you know, don't let bullying consume your life. You can also do great things and use that.
Yeah, and you know, it's amazing how, you know, telling his story and how really rough of more of a middle school life that he had, and how now he's going around. I believe he's the CEO of his own public speaking company, and he is just an amazing story. And I know, Mr. Estep, you had a chance to talk to him more than where really anyone did. And what can you say about him, that just about his character and everything?
Well, I mean, here you have a young man who has, several disabilities. First of all, he's 24 years old at this time. He has come a long way, in his very young life. And he's doing some really cool things. As you mentioned, he's the CEO of his own public speaking company, and he's out there getting a message out to young people. He not only speaks to young people, but he also is speaking to teachers and college students alike. So he's out there trying to reach many levels of individuals and age groups. And I think his message, as you said, J. Max, was a powerful message, and I think he did a great job, reaching out to our student body. And I really do believe, as he was talking, and I'm watching the young folks here at Juniata Valley, they were truly listening, and I think they were truly hearing his message.
Yeah, and sitting out in the crowd listening to him, I mean, you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was focused on every single word he was saying, and I think that's a really good thing. And Grant, I don't know about you, but I really felt his message.
Yes, me too. But I think the thing that really hit home with me was the cyberbullying. I think this is the first real assembly. I mean, we've had assemblies about cyberbullying, don't get me wrong, but I think he really hit that home. He said cyberbullying, and he said, enough cyberbullying. He said it's time to stop that, and I thought that was one of the most powerful parts for me, because I know every day I see cyberbullying, and I know that it does affect a lot of people, and it affects a lot more people now, especially today. It's going on today, I can tell you that. So I think that his message for that was amazing, and I think that truly he's a amazing person, and I can't wait to see what else he can, the other lives that he has touched and affected.
Yeah, and I agree, and it really amazes me that while giving his presentation, he was emotional, and he really does truly care about what he's talking about, and I think that's the most important thing, because we've had bullying assemblies, like Grant has said, many times. But I think this is the first one that we had that the speaker was so intertwined with what he was talking about. And it really, I think, maybe more so for the younger kids too, it really hit home on what it does to a person to be bullied.
The most important question is, who would you be more eager to listen to? Someone who was bullied or someone who has never experienced it?
I think we'll let Mr. Estep answer this one.
Well, guys, honestly, I think, as you referred to, J. Max, Adam was very emotional about his story because he lived his story. He was the individual who was, being abused by others, whether it was name calling or pushing or shoving, as he reported to us and told us what his experience was like as a youngster, especially in the junior high school. I think when you you are the person who experienced it. You do have that connection. You have that personal connection to what you're trying to explain as to what it was like to be bullied to others. And I think and also in his case, he was young. I mean, he's 24 years old. He's really not that much older than the student body. And I think with his age and the fact that he did experience it, I believe that his message was even more powerful because of that experience. I think, for me to stand up, thankfully I was never bullied. And for me to stand up in front of the class, the school, and say, here's what you should do, here's what you shouldn't do. My message is important, but the fact that I didn't have that experience made it kind of just makes it sort of superficial. Mm-hmm. Well, the fact that this young man experienced it and had the emotion that he had, I think that emotion was felt by all of the student body as he was explaining the things that occurred to him as a young man.
Yeah, and at the presentation, I think one of the most enlightening things was at the end when he opened the floor up to questions. There was a number of questions, and I mean very in-depth questions from, I believe they were fourth or fifth grade.
Fourth or fifth grade, yeah.
And they were, I mean, it is kind of hard for me to listen to, thinking that these young kids have these problems in our school. Mm-hmm. And being a senior right now, I'm not around that, and I don't see it, and I very rarely see any type of bullying here in the halls or in classrooms. But it kind of hurts to think that these young kids are going through this, and they really don't understand how to cope or how to, fix the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that with these younger kids, though, I think that was a good way to get the message across to them, because now, listening to those questions, those kids do know what to do, and I think that really they're going to really start putting that into effect, and they're going to learn, bullying's not okay. The bullying needs to stop now so that we don't have those problems whenever we come up into the high school. And I think that was something that did happen to us. Like, we had these assemblies as 4th and 5th graders too, and now, like Jay said, I don't really see too much bullying in the halls of the high school, and I think that's a really great thing that Juniata Valley has going right now.
Yeah, and I feel like walking around here, I feel safe. It feels like a very safe place for that. And if I have seen bullying in high school, and I've stepped up, and I know another number of other kids that have stepped up and fixed the problem. And it's, it goes back to all those assemblies that we were at and attended at the young age. We've been drilled. You have to do something when you see something like that going on. Yes. And it's a really good way to get the kids to understand what's going on with these assemblies and things. And I think Adam, he did such a great job, especially with the younger kids, But I tend to find that the problem with these assemblies is people who are being bullied listen, but the bullies tend to not listen. And I think it's a very big generalization, I know, but I think there was a difference, and I personally hope there was a difference with this certain presentation, because he really drilled down more in depth than anyone ever has, for us anyway. So I really hope that the bullies, whoever they may be, really sat and listened and saw what they are doing to other kids.
Yeah. The one thing that, and I'm sure you'll remember this, but the one thing that Adam did say is, and he said it several times, he said, "I am different." He identified the fact that he is different. The thing about people is this: every one of us are different from the other. Every one of us has some level of difference, whether it's short or tall, whether it's likes or dislikes, whatever that might be. Every one of us is different. So even if there's a bully out there, before you think you want to point out someone else's differences, take a look at your own self first. Identify your own differences, or how you are different than someone else, and why it would be okay in your mind to point out someone else's differences.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea of, I think, being a bully, is they're almost afraid to look at themselves and understand that it's okay. It's okay to be different. Mm-hmm. And I think Grant can talk about this a little bit. You have younger siblings, Grant. I don't know if you have heard being a senior, I don't have very many interactions with younger kids, but maybe you do. I'm not sure.
I mean, I have some interaction with the younger kids, especially with my younger brother who's in 8th grade. And I know right now in his grade that kids are enjoying school. Like, I know whenever I was younger, I heard about, seniors telling kids they wouldn't want to come to school and stuff, and it's not going to be fun. But I think right now, what my brother is saying to me is that these kids are enjoying coming to school. They're enjoying coming to learn. They don't have to worry about people being there to pick on them. They don't have to worry about you guys as a senior class as a whole just do a phenomenal job. I have not seen one bully in this senior class yet. I know the junior class, we try our best. I don't think much goes on there. And I just know that helps these little kids. I've seen people helping these younger kids and these younger grades. And I think that is what really helps these kids, want to come to school, want to learn, and, have fun at school. So.
Yeah, and I think it really helps for having those younger kids to have people to look up to, with the juniors and the seniors walking around. They can say, look at him, He is being an exceptional student in the hallway. He's not doing this. He's not being a bully. He's being nice and kind. And I think that's just a really big thing that goes on here at Juniata Valley. And maybe Mr. Estep, if you have an idea where that comes from, I don't know, maybe it does come from the administration, or maybe it just happens to be who we are as a school.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think it is exactly who we are as a school. Juniata Valley, the community, and the school community itself, the student body. Honestly, guys, every day I feel like I am amazed because I see something different happening within our school, that just shows me that people care. Kids care. Kids care about other kids. Kids care about adults. Adults care about the kids. I don't think that there is a student in this building that would be afraid to walk up to and talk to an older student, be afraid to walk up to and talk to a teacher that isn't necessarily one of their teachers. And I'm pretty sure, I feel very confident to say there isn't a student in this building that is afraid to walk into Mr. Estep's principal's office, because I tell everybody, my door's open. My door is open for you. Come on in, sit down, let's talk. Don't be afraid. I'm not the person or a person to be afraid of. I'm here to help. I'm here to put forth as much effort as I can into making this the best experience that every kid can have at Juniata Valley.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great message. And I'd like to take this second to say that if you are a student here at Juniata Valley listening to this podcast, or a parent of a student that's having problems, that's just having a rough time about anything, feel free to come up to Grant or I, or Mr. Estep. Come to a teacher. Don't be afraid. There's no problem in doing that, and it's such a good thing to talk about it to an older student or an adult. And before we move on here about this topic, I'd like to move into a little bit of the idea of who we are at JV. You see, maybe you watch a movie, or you see these stereotypes where you have maybe your athletes, and maybe your intellectuals, or your singers or dancers, and I really don't see that here at Juniata Valley. From 7th grade on, looking up into, I have many older cousins who I know, for example, he had friends that were geniuses, very smart, but then he'd turn around and they're all friends with the starting quarterback, and they're all friends with the band members, and I really feel like that is what makes it makes the school feel so safe, is there's no real social classes here. And I think that's a great thing to have.
I think that's what one of the great things about having a small school is that we really intertwine. You have your sort of little cliques here and there, but everyone is friends with everyone. I know I have friends who are band members. I have friends who are in speech league. I have, friends who don't really do much at the school, but still like to hang out with us and still talk to us about these kind of things. And I think that's the great part, because you can't really just zero out on people, because we're pretty much we're all intertwined in a way. So I think that's one of the great things about having a small school.
Yeah, and I really think that is the major reasoning behind that is the small school, because we really can't. We can't afford almost as a student body to have these classes, because if we wouldn't, we might have 2 or 3 friends. Mm-hmm. And personally, I don't know if I'd like only having 2 or 3 friends. I don't know about you, Grant.
Yeah, and I couldn't imagine that. So I think, with this small school, it's a really good thing. And I'd like to say one more thing. Adam, if you're listening, go Steelers.
Yes, very much. He's a very big Steelers fan.
Big time Steelers fan, that's for sure.
And so, but kind of switching gears here, we have a couple questions we'd like to ask Mr. Estep, being our first interview on a podcast. So, Mr. Estep, what are some policies that you're really cracking down on this year at Juniata Valley?
That's a really good question. I really don't want to think that I'm cracking down on any one specifically. I mean, I do the best job I can to implement all school policies as effectively and efficiently and as fairly as possible. So I can't really think of anything that I would say I'm cracking down on. But we are always vigilant to make sure that we're taking care of business as it needs to be taken care of as it arises. But again, according to those school policies as well.
What are some of the new policies that the school has put in this year?
Well, we don't actually have any new policies per se. We always update policies from year to year. First of all, let me kind of review real quickly about policies. School board policies are put into effect by the school board. They are all recommended by the Pennsylvania School Board Association from a legal standpoint. All school board policies they fall within current legal decisions made by various levels of court. That could be Court of Common Pleas, it could be your Supreme Court of the state or the Supreme Court of the United States. So again, all these policies are the recommendation of the School Board Association, and therefore then adopted by each individual school district as it applies either one to the overall law or within some parameters of the school district based on each individual need with those policies. One of the biggest things I think that most school districts at this point are dealing with are the technology end of things. Obviously, you guys now are a one-to-one Chromebook school, so every student in our building has their own Chromebook. You have access to internet, although a limited access based on filtration of certain content and so forth. All of those, although those devices and all of those internet connections and so forth are all they all fall within a certain policy that has been identified as what is legal and so forth by like I said, courts and court rulings up to this point. So I would say if anything's new, those are the things that are probably the newest policies that we are enforcing as they are currently.
Okay, thank you.
So this is probably my most interesting question I'd like to ask is, do you take any heat from either, I don't know if it's the student body or maybe parents, do you take any heat for a specific policy, or are they all generally just understood to be the rules?
Right. Well, I mean, I think in general they are the rules. They are the policies that are accepted and, or I should say, agreed upon by the school district and enforced by the school board. Or I should say supported by the school board, and I guess I'm the one who then enforces those, administration enforces those policies as they pertain to whatever that policy is. Now, remember that we're talking about policies and not necessarily discipline, so I want to make sure that we understand that, or the question is not necessarily a disciplinary type policies, but there are a whole variety of policies that school districts have. I mean, they could be anything from obviously students to curriculum to personnel to and things like that. And there are a variety of policies under each of those categories. Now, there are others as well. But do I take heat? Does the school district take heat? Sure. I mean, you take heat from whatever person or group of persons may have to fall under a certain policy, whether it is a discipline policy or whether it is a personnel policy, or whether it is buildings and grounds, whatever it might be, because there's always someone or a group of someone who might not agree with those policies. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, whether they agree or disagree doesn't matter. The policy is what it is, and it will be enforced as it is written and accepted by the school board.
Well, those are some very, very good answers to all our questions, Mr. Estep. And wrapping it up here, I'd really like to thank you for joining us again, and I had a lot of fun as we start to build this Valley Soup from the ground up. And hopefully, who knows, maybe in a couple months or a couple weeks, maybe we'll have you back on and talk about something else. We're just making this as we go along here. And I'd like to take a second to say that we are hoping to have a podcast produced every week. I believe we mentioned this in our first podcast. Some weeks we may not be able to, depending on maybe there's a snow day here or there, and it just hinders our ability to do so. But I'm really looking forward to it. I know Grant is. Looking forward to doing this Valley Soup. And I'd like to thank you for tuning in and listening. And I hope you had a very pleasurable experience.
Everybody remember to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get the notifications whenever our podcasts do come out, along with the other things that we have here on Hornet TV.
And I'd like to thank you again for listening to the Valley Soup. For more information on Adam Blank and his anti-bullying campaign, please visit www.adampblank.com.